The morning sun cast long shadows across the palace grounds as William stood by the window of his private study. His hands trembled slightly as he held the letter that had arrived just an hour ago. The words on the official document seemed to blur together, but their meaning was crystal clear. Kate had been diagnosed with a rare condition that would require her to step away from all royal duties indefinitely. He could hear her footsteps in the hallway, the same gentle rhythm he had grown to love over their years together. But today, those footsteps carried a weight that made his heart ache. William knew that Kate was trying to be strong, just as she always had been throughout their relationship and marriage. She was the kind of person who put others before herself, even when facing her own greatest challenges. Kate entered the room quietly, her face pale but determined. She had spent the early morning hours in the garden, picking flowers for what she knew might be the last time in a very long while. The small bouquet of roses and daisies in her hand seemed to represent all the simple joys they had shared together, as a couple and as working members of the royal family. "The children don't know yet," she said softly, placing the flowers on his desk. William nodded, understanding the weight of that statement. George, Charlotte, and Louis were still young, and explaining why their mother would be going away for treatment would be one of the hardest conversations they would ever have to have as parents. The palace staff had been informed earlier that morning during an emergency meeting. William had watched as faces around the conference table showed shock, sadness, and concern. These were people who had worked with Kate for years, who had seen her grow from a nervous new royal into a confident and beloved member of the family. The head of communications had already begun drafting statements for the press, knowing that the news would eventually become public. Kate moved to the window and looked out at the gardens where she had spent countless hours with their children. She remembered teaching George how to plant seeds, watching Charlotte chase butterflies, and helping Louis take his first steps on the lawn. These memories felt precious now, like treasures she needed to hold close to her heart during the difficult times ahead. "I've been thinking about our wedding day," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Do you remember how nervous we both were, but also how certain we felt about our future together?" William moved to stand beside her, their hands finding each other naturally as they had done thousands of times before. The morning light highlighted the tears that Kate had been trying so hard to hold back. She had always been the strong one, the one who could face any challenge with grace and dignity, but this was different. This was about facing something that could change everything about their life together. William squeezed her hand gently, remembering all the moments they had shared. Their first meeting at university, their long courtship, the proposal that had made headlines around the world, and their fairy tale wedding that millions had watched. Through it all, Kate had been his anchor, his source of strength and comfort. The palace felt unusually quiet that morning. Even the staff seemed to move more softly, as if they understood the gravity of what was happening. William knew that soon, their private world would be invaded by public concern, media attention, and the weight of royal protocol. But for now, in this moment, it was just the two of them facing an uncertain future together. Kate turned away from the window and looked at William with the same eyes that had captured his heart all those years ago. "Whatever happens," she said, "I want you to know that every moment we've shared has been worth it. Every challenge we faced together has made us stronger." The breakfast that morning remained untouched on the table in their private dining room. Neither of them had much appetite, but they sat together anyway, holding hands across the table and talking quietly about practical matters. They discussed the children's schedules, upcoming royal events that would need to be canceled or postponed, and the medical treatment plan that Kate would begin the following week. As the morning progressed, William found himself memorizing small details about Kate that he had perhaps taken for granted before. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was thinking, the gentle sound of her laugh, the way her eyes lit up when she talked about their children. These moments suddenly felt infinitely precious. The letter from the medical team sat open on the desk, its formal language unable to convey the emotional impact of its contents. Kate would need to undergo intensive treatment at a specialized facility, away from home, away from her family, away from everything that had given her life meaning and purpose. When the children came home from school that afternoon, William and Kate would sit them down and explain that Mummy needed to go away for a while to get better. They would answer their questions as honestly as they could, while trying to maintain the stability and security that every child deserves. But for now, in these quiet morning hours, William and Kate simply held each other, knowing that their silent farewell had already begun. The goodbye they would share would not be dramatic or public, but rather a gentle, private moment between two people who had shared a lifetime of love and were now facing their greatest test together. The afternoon brought a gentle rain that tapped softly against the windows of Kensington Palace. Kate sat in the nursery, surrounded by toys and picture books that told the story of her children's growth. George's model airplanes hung from the ceiling. Charlotte's art projects covered one wall, and Louis's favorite stuffed animals were scattered across the soft carpet. She picked up a small wooden train that Louis loved to play with, running her fingers over its smooth surface. This room had been her sanctuary, a place where she could simply be a mother rather than a duchess. Here she had read countless bedtime stories, dried tears after scraped knees, and celebrated the small victories that mark a child's development. William found her there an hour later, still holding the toy train. He sat down beside her on the small chair that had been designed for story time. The furniture seemed too small for his tall frame, but he had spent many evenings in this same position, reading to their children while Kate prepared for bed. "They'll be home soon," he said gently. Kate nodded, knowing that the conversation they were about to have would change everything for their family. George, at his young age, would try to be brave and grown up. Charlotte might not fully understand but would sense that something important was happening. Louis would probably just miss his mother, without comprehending why she had to go away. The sound of car doors closing in the driveway announced the children's arrival. Their voices carried through the hallway, full of energy and excitement about their day at school. George was telling Charlotte about a science experiment they had done, while Louis was chattering about the picture he had painted during art time. Kate stood up and smoothed her dress, taking a deep breath to prepare herself. William reached for her hand, and together they walked to the family sitting room where they would gather the children. The room felt different somehow, as if it already knew that this would be a day the family would always remember. George entered first, his school bag slung over his shoulder and his tie slightly askew. He had William's eyes and Kate's gentle smile, and seeing him always reminded Kate of how much she had to be grateful for. Charlotte followed, chattering about her friend's birthday party next week, her hair still in the neat braids Kate had done that morning. Louis ran in last, heading straight for Kate's arms as he always did. She lifted him up and held him close, breathing in the scent of his hair and feeling the warmth of his small body against hers. For a moment, she allowed herself to imagine that this was just another ordinary day, that nothing was about to change. "Children, come sit with us," William said, his voice carrying a seriousness that made George look up sharply. Charlotte stopped talking about the birthday party and moved closer to Kate, sensing the change in atmosphere. Louis remained in Kate's arms, playing with her necklace as he often did. Kate set Louis down gently and waited for all three children to settle on the sofa. The room was filled with family photos, reminders of happier times and special occasions. There was their last Christmas morning, a summer holiday by the sea, and countless candid moments that captured the joy they had shared as a family. "We need to tell you something important," Kate began, her voice steady despite the emotions swirling inside her. "Mummy hasn't been feeling very well lately, and the doctors think it would be best if I go away for a little while to get the help I need to feel better." George frowned, his young mind trying to process this information. "What kind of not feeling well?" he asked, always the one to seek details and understanding. Kate had anticipated this question and had thought carefully about how to answer honestly without frightening him. "Sometimes people get sick in ways that regular medicine can't fix right away," she explained. "The doctors have found a special place where they can help me get better, but it means I won't be able to come home every night like I usually do." Charlotte's eyes began to fill with tears, though she tried to be brave like her older brother. "Will you come back?" she asked, her voice small and worried. Kate's heart broke at the question, knowing that while she believed she would return, there were no guarantees in life. "I'm going to do everything I can to get better and come home to you," Kate said, reaching out to stroke Charlotte's hair. "And while I'm away, Daddy will be here with you and Grandma and Grandpa will visit more often. You'll still go to school and play with your friends and do all the things you love to do. Louis, too young to fully understand, looked back and forth between his parents' faces. He could sense the sadness in the room, even if he couldn't grasp the reason for it. He climbed back into Kate's lap and nestled against her, seeking comfort in the familiar warmth of her embrace. William watched his family with a heavy heart, knowing that this moment would be etched in all their memories forever. He thought about all the ordinary moments they had shared that now seemed extraordinarily precious. Family dinners, weekend walks, bedtime stories, and lazy Sunday mornings in bed together. "When do you have to go?" George asked, showing the maturity that often surprised adults. Kate felt proud of his strength while simultaneously grieving for the childhood innocence that was being asked to grow up too quickly. "Next week," Kate replied softly, "but we'll have this whole weekend together and we can do whatever you'd like to do. We could have a movie night or go for a walk in the park or bake those cookies you love so much." The children began to ask more questions, and William and Kate answered them as best they could. They talked about video calls, letters, and care packages. They discussed how the household would continue to run and how their routines would stay as normal as possible. As evening approached, the family gathered for dinner in the small dining room they used for informal meals. The conversation was quieter than usual, but there were still moments of laughter when Louis told a silly joke or Charlotte shared something funny that had happened at school. After dinner, they all curled up together on the large sofa in the family room to watch a movie. Kate sat in the middle, with George on one side and Charlotte on the other, while Louis sprawled across her lap. William sat at the end, his arm around the whole group, creating a cocoon of love and security that they all wished could last forever. The weekend passed like a beautiful dream that everyone knew was temporary. Kate woke up early each morning, not wanting to waste a single moment sleeping when she could be with her children. She made their favorite breakfast, complete with heart-shaped pancakes that had become a family tradition on special occasions. Saturday brought a trip to their favorite park, where they fed the ducks and played on the swings. Kate pushed Louis higher than she normally would, laughing at his delighted squeals. She helped Charlotte collect interesting leaves for a nature project, admiring each one as if it were a precious treasure. With George, she sat on a bench and talked about his schoolwork, his friends, and his dreams for the future. William captured these moments on his phone, knowing that the pictures would become treasured memories for all of them. There was something magical about that Saturday afternoon, as if the sun shone a little brighter and the laughter rang a little clearer because everyone understood how precious it was. That evening, Kate read bedtime stories to each child individually, something she had done less frequently as they had gotten older and more independent. She started with Louis, who chose the same book about a brave little rabbit that they had read together dozens of times. His small hand rested on her arm as she read, and she found herself reading more slowly than usual, wanting to extend every minute. Charlotte picked a book about a princess who went on adventures, and as Kate read about the character's courage and determination, she wondered if her daughter would remember these words years later. Charlotte asked if she could sleep in her parents' room that night, and Kate agreed immediately, understanding the need to be close. George, trying to be mature, initially said he didn't need a story, but when Kate sat on his bed to say goodnight, he quietly asked if she would read just one chapter from the adventure series they had been working through together. She read 2 chapters instead, and neither of them mentioned that they were breaking the usual bedtime routine. Sunday morning brought a special pancake breakfast where everyone helped cook. Even Louis contributed by stirring the batter, though more of it ended up on his clothes than in the bowl. The kitchen filled with flour dust and laughter, and Kate realized she was memorizing the sound of her children's voices, the way they moved around the kitchen, and the comfortable chaos of their family life. They spent the afternoon in the garden where Kate had always found peace. She showed the children how to plant bulbs that would bloom in the spring, telling them that when the flowers came up, it would be like a message from her, reminding them of this day and her love for them. Charlotte asked if they could plant different colored flowers, and Kate agreed enthusiastically. Together, they planned a rainbow garden with tulips, daffodils, and crocuses. George wanted to plant something that would attract butterflies, remembering how his mother always stopped to admire them during their walks. As the sun began to set on Sunday evening, the family gathered in the living room for one last movie night. They made popcorn and hot chocolate, and everyone piled onto the large sectional sofa with blankets and pillows. Kate found herself not really watching the screen, but instead studying her children's faces in the glow of the television. That night, after the children were finally asleep, Kate and William sat together in their bedroom, packing the suitcase that would go with her to the treatment facility. Each item seemed significant somehow. The warm sweater William had given her for Christmas, the book she had been reading, the small photo album filled with pictures of their family. "I've written them each a letter," Kate said quietly, showing William 3 sealed envelopes with the children's names written in her careful handwriting, "for you to give them if they need them while I'm away. And I've written you one too for the hard days when you might need to remember why we're doing this." William took the letters with trembling hands, understanding the weight of what she was entrusting to him. They had been partners in everything since their marriage, sharing the responsibilities of parenthood and royal duties. Now he would have to carry that load alone, at least for a while. They talked quietly about practical matters. William would maintain the children's routines as much as possible. Kate's private secretary would handle the cancellation of her upcoming engagements. The household staff had been briefed and were prepared to provide extra support during this difficult time. As Monday morning dawned gray and drizzly, the atmosphere in the palace felt heavy with unspoken emotions. Kate dressed carefully in a simple blue dress, the same color she had worn on their engagement announcement day years ago. She wanted to look strong and hopeful, even though her heart was breaking. The children came to breakfast already dressed for school, though they moved more slowly than usual. Louis kept looking at his mother's suitcase in the hallway, not fully understanding why it was there but sensing its importance. Charlotte had braided her own hair, wanting to show her mother that she could take care of herself. George sat closer to Kate at breakfast than he normally would, and she appreciated this silent gesture of affection from her eldest child. They talked about normal things, homework assignments, after-school activities, and plans for the weekend. But underneath the ordinary conversation, everyone could feel the weight of the approaching goodbye. After breakfast, Kate walked the children to the car that would take them to school. She hugged each of them a little longer than usual, whispering words of love and encouragement. She told George to take care of his younger siblings, asked Charlotte to remember to be kind to herself, and promised Louis that she would call to say goodnight every evening. Standing in the driveway, watching the car disappear around the corner, Kate felt the first tear slip down her cheek. William stood beside her, his hand on her shoulder, both of them knowing that the hardest part of their silent farewell was yet to come. The car that would take Kate to the treatment facility arrived at precisely 10 o'clock. William watched from the window as the driver stepped out and respectfully waited by the vehicle. This wasn't a royal car with flags and ceremony, but a simple, dignified transport that would carry his wife away from everything they had built together. Kate stood in their bedroom, taking one last look around the space that had been their private sanctuary for so many years. The bed where they had shared quiet conversations late into the night, the chair by the window where she often sat to read, the dresser topped with family photos that told the story of their life together. She picked up a small framed picture of their wedding day, studying their younger faces full of hope and promise. Neither of them could have imagined on that bright April day when the world celebrated their love that they would one day face such a difficult separation. But looking at their smiling faces, Kate felt strength in knowing that their love had weathered every storm so far. William appeared in the doorway, holding her coat and the small overnight bag that contained her most precious possessions. His face was composed, showing the royal training that had taught him to maintain dignity in difficult circumstances. But Kate could see the pain in his eyes. "The staff wants to say goodbye," he said gently. Kate nodded, understanding that these people who had become like family deserved their own moment of farewell. She followed William downstairs to the main hallway, where the household staff had quietly gathered. Mrs. Henderson, the head housekeeper who had been with them since their early married days, stepped forward first. Her usually stern face was soft with emotion as she took Kate's hands in her weathered ones. "Your Grace," she said simply, "we'll be here when you come home." The simple words carried the weight of absolute loyalty and love. The cook, who had learned all of Kate's favorite recipes and had prepared countless family meals, presented her with a small package of homemade biscuits for the journey. The gardener, whose roses Kate had always admired, gave her a single perfect bloom. Each gesture was small but filled with meaning. Kate thanked each person individually, remembering specific kindnesses they had shown over the years. She knew that these people would help care for her children while she was away, and their love and dedication gave her comfort, even in this moment of sorrow. The walk to the car felt both endless and far too short. Kate carried herself with the same grace she had shown through years of public appearances, but this was perhaps the most difficult performance of her royal career. Each step took her further from the life she loved and closer to an uncertain future. William carried her suitcase, a simple gesture that reminded Kate of their university days when they had been just a young couple, helping each other move between dormitories. Those carefree days seemed like a lifetime ago, yet the love that had grown between them remained as strong as ever. At the car, Kate turned for one last look at Kensington Palace, the place that had been home for so many years. The windows of the children's rooms caught the morning light, and she could almost see their faces looking out even though they were at school. This image would stay with her during the difficult days ahead. "I need you to know," Kate said, turning to William, "that leaving you and the children is the hardest thing I've ever done, but I'm doing it because I love you all too much to stay and not be the mother and wife you deserve." Her voice was steady, but tears had begun to fall freely down her cheeks. William pulled her into his arms, holding her close against his chest. They stood like that for several minutes, not speaking, just holding each other and drawing strength from their physical closeness. The driver respectfully turned away, giving them privacy for this intimate moment. "I'll call every day," Kate whispered against William's shoulder. "I'll want to hear about everything. Their homework, their games, their dreams, their worries. Don't let them forget that even though I'm not there, I'm still their mother and I'm fighting to come back to them." William promised he would share every detail, every small victory and minor setback. He would take pictures of their daily life and send them to her. He would read her letters to the children and help them write letters back. He would make sure that distance could not diminish the love that bound their family together. The moment came when they could delay no longer. Kate kissed William one last time, a kiss that held all their shared memories and hopes for the future. She touched his face gently, memorizing the feel of his skin and the love in his eyes. Getting into the car required every ounce of strength Kate possessed. She had faced royal protocol, public scrutiny, and media attention with grace, but nothing had prepared her for the difficulty of leaving her family. She kept her composure until the car door closed, and then the tears came freely. William stood in the driveway until the car disappeared from sight, his hand raised in a final farewell. The palace felt empty without Kate's presence, as if something essential had been removed from its heart. He thought about the children, who would come home from school to find their mother gone, and steeled himself for the difficult conversations ahead. Inside the car, Kate watched the familiar landmarks of London pass by the window. These were places where she had lived her life as a royal, where she had carried out duties and met with people from all walks of life. Now she was leaving it all behind, not knowing when she would see any of it again. The treatment facility was 2 hours away from London, far enough to provide privacy and peace, but close enough that William could visit when possible. Kate had seen pictures of the place. It looked more like a country estate than a medical facility, with gardens and peaceful walking paths designed to promote healing. As the city gave way to countryside, Kate felt a strange mixture of fear and hope. She was afraid of the unknown challenges ahead, but hopeful that this step would lead to healing and the chance to return to her family. The letters she had written to her children rested in her purse, each one filled with love and encouragement for the days when they might need extra comfort. The driver, a kind man who had been briefed about the sensitive nature of this journey, played soft classical music and maintained a respectful silence. Kate was grateful for his discretion, allowing her to process her emotions without feeling observed or judged. She thought about William, who would now carry the full weight of royal duties and parenting alone. She thought about George, trying to be brave and mature beyond his years. Charlotte, who would miss their shared activities and conversations. Louis, who might not understand why his mother had simply disappeared from his daily life. But she also thought about the future, about the possibility of healing and return. She pictured herself walking back through the doors of Kensington Palace, healthy and whole, ready to resume the life she loved. This vision gave her strength to face whatever lay ahead. The treatment facility nestled in the rolling hills of the English countryside looked nothing like a hospital. Kate stepped out of the car to find herself facing a beautiful manor house, surrounded by carefully tended gardens and ancient oak trees. The afternoon sun cast dappled shadows across the gravel driveway, and she could hear birds singing in the distance. Dr. Sarah Matthews, the lead physician who would oversee Kate's care, met her at the entrance. She was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a warm smile that immediately put Kate at ease. There was no ceremony or formality, just one human being welcoming another to a place of healing. "Your Grace," Dr. Matthews said, then immediately corrected herself with a gentle smile. "Actually, here you're simply Kate. We find that healing happens best when people can set aside their public roles and focus on being themselves." Kate felt a strange sense of relief at hearing her name spoken so simply. For years she had been Her Royal Highness or the Duchess, titles that carried weight and responsibility. Here she could just be Kate, a woman, a mother, a wife who needed help. The interior of the facility continued the feeling of being in someone's comfortable home rather than a medical institution. Soft furnishings, artwork on the walls, and fresh flowers in every room created an atmosphere of peace and tranquility. Kate's room was on the second floor, with windows overlooking the gardens and a distant view of rolling hills. "This will be your space," Dr. Matthews explained, showing Kate around the room. "We encourage patients to make it their own. Family photos, personal belongings, anything that brings comfort." Kate unpacked the framed picture of her wedding day and placed it on the bedside table, along with the family photo that had been taken just last Christmas. The first few days were focused on assessment and adjustment. Kate met with various specialists who would be part of her treatment team. Each conversation was conducted with respect for her privacy and dignity, but also with the kind of thoroughness that gave her confidence in their expertise. Dr. Matthews explained the treatment plan during their first formal session. It would be comprehensive, addressing not just the medical aspects of Kate's condition, but also the emotional and psychological challenges that came with her unique position in life. "Being a member of the royal family brings pressures that most people never experience," she said. "We want to help you develop tools for managing those pressures while maintaining your health." Meanwhile, back at Kensington Palace, William was learning to navigate life as a single parent. The first evening without Kate was the hardest. George asked twice when Mummy would call. Charlotte seemed unusually quiet during dinner, and Louis kept looking toward the door as if expecting Kate to walk through it at any moment. William read the bedtime stories that night, trying to use the same voices Kate had developed for different characters. Louis fell asleep easily enough, but Charlotte asked if she could sleep with one of Kate's scarves, wanting something that smelled like her mother. George, ever the thoughtful one, asked if they could send his mother a drawing he had made at school. The daily phone calls became a lifeline for the family. Kate called every evening at 7 o'clock just before the children's bedtime. These conversations were precious to everyone involved, filled with updates about school, friends, and the small events that make up a child's world. "Tell me about your day," Kate would say to each child in turn, and they would share everything: the math test George had worried about, the friend Charlotte had played with at lunch, the new word Louis had learned. These ordinary details became treasures that Kate collected and held close to her heart. William would take the phone last, and their conversations were different, quieter, more focused on the emotional landscape of their separation. He told her about the children's moods, their questions, their moments of sadness. Kate shared what she could about her treatment, always emphasizing the progress she was making and her determination to come home. The public knew only that the Duchess of Cambridge had stepped back from royal duties for health reasons. The palace had released a brief statement asking for privacy during this time, and remarkably, most of the media respected this request. There were no paparazzi camping outside the treatment facility, no intrusive headlines speculating about Kate's condition. This privacy allowed Kate to focus entirely on her healing. She participated in therapy sessions that helped her process the unique stresses of royal life. She worked with medical specialists who addressed her physical symptoms. She took long walks in the facility's gardens, often calling William to describe the flowers she was seeing or the wildlife she had encountered. 3 weeks into her stay, Kate had a breakthrough during a therapy session. She was able to articulate feelings she had been carrying for years. The pressure of constant public scrutiny, the weight of representing not just herself but an institution, the challenge of raising children in the spotlight while trying to give them normal childhoods. "I've spent so much energy trying to be perfect," she told Dr. Matthews. "Perfect wife, perfect mother, perfect duchess. I forgot that being human, being vulnerable, being imperfect is not just okay. It's necessary for authentic connection with the people I love." This realization marked a turning point in her treatment. Kate began to engage more deeply with the therapeutic process, exploring not just her current health challenges but the patterns of thinking and behavior that had contributed to her condition. She started a journal, writing letters to her children that she didn't intend to send, but that helped her process her emotions about being away from them. She wrote about her hopes for their futures, her memories of special moments they had shared, and her determination to be a healthier, more present mother when she returned. The facility had a small library where Kate spent many afternoons reading. She discovered books about mindfulness, about finding balance in demanding lives, about the importance of self-care for people in helping professions. She realized that being a royal was, in many ways, a helping profession, serving the public, supporting charitable causes, representing the best of what the monarchy could be. One afternoon, while sitting in the garden writing in her journal, Kate received an unexpected visitor. Princess Anne, William's aunt, had come to see her. The older woman sat down beside Kate on the garden bench and spoke with characteristic directness. "I've been where you are," Princess Anne said simply. "Different circumstances, different times, but the same feeling of being overwhelmed by expectations and responsibilities. Taking time to heal isn't weakness, Kate. It's wisdom." They talked for hours that afternoon about the unique challenges of royal life, about finding personal identity within public roles, about the importance of mental and emotional health. Princess Anne's visit reminded Kate that she wasn't alone in facing these challenges, that other members of the royal family had struggled and survived and thrived. That evening, Kate's phone call home was different. Her voice carried a new strength, a clearer sense of purpose. She told William about Princess Anne's visit, and about the insights she was gaining through her treatment. For the first time since arriving at the facility, she spoke with confidence about coming home. 6 weeks into Kate's treatment, William received the call he had been hoping for. Dr. Matthews phoned to say that Kate was ready for a family visit. Her progress had been remarkable, and the medical team felt that seeing her children would be beneficial for everyone involved. William carefully planned the visit, wanting everything to be perfect for this precious reunion. He told the children the night before, watching their faces light up with joy and excitement. George immediately asked if this meant Mummy was better and coming home. Charlotte wanted to know if she could bring the drawing she had been working on for weeks. Louis simply clapped his hands and asked if they could bring Mummy's favorite flowers. The drive to the treatment facility felt different from William's previous solo visits. The car was filled with the children's chatter and excitement, bags packed with gifts they had made for their mother, and an energy that had been missing from their home for weeks. Kate waited in the garden, wearing a simple yellow dress that the children had always loved. She looked healthier than she had in months, with color in her cheeks and a brightness in her eyes that William hadn't seen for far too long. When she saw the car approaching, she stood up from the bench where she had been waiting, her heart pounding with anticipation. Louis was the first out of the car, running straight into Kate's arms with the pure joy that only a young child can express. Kate lifted him up and spun him around, both of them laughing with delight. Charlotte followed close behind, suddenly shy after weeks of separation, but melting into her mother's embrace when Kate knelt down to her level. George approached more slowly, trying to maintain the mature composure he had adopted in his mother's absence, but Kate could see the relief and happiness in his eyes. When she opened her arms to him, he stepped into her hug and held on tightly, as if he could prevent any future separations through the strength of his embrace. William watched this reunion with tears in his eyes, seeing his family whole again, even if it was only temporary. Kate looked up at him over the children's heads, and the love and gratitude in her expression spoke volumes about how much this moment meant to her. They spent the afternoon in the facility's beautiful gardens, having a picnic lunch that the staff had prepared. Kate wanted to hear everything about the children's lives, their schoolwork, their friends, their activities. She admired Charlotte's latest artwork, listened to George read from his favorite book, and played simple games with Louis that made him giggle with delight. "Tell me about the garden at home," Kate said as they walked along the paths between flower beds. "Have the bulbs we planted started to come up?" Charlotte nodded enthusiastically, describing the tiny green shoots that had appeared in recent days. "I check them every morning," she said, "and tell them that you're getting better so they should grow strong too." The afternoon passed too quickly, filled with the comfortable rhythms of family life that Kate had missed so desperately. They looked at photos on William's phone, showing Kate all the moments she had missed: school plays, football matches, quiet evenings at home. Each picture was a reminder of the life waiting for her return. When it was time for the family to leave, the goodbyes were easier than Kate had expected. The children had seen that she was getting better, that she was still their mother despite the physical separation. They were more confident now that this separation was temporary, that there was a real plan for her return. "I'll be home soon," Kate promised each child individually, "and when I come back, I'll be the best version of myself, a better mother, a happier person, someone who can take care of all of you the way you deserve." George nodded solemnly, understanding more than his years should require. Charlotte asked if they could plant more flowers together when she came home. Louis simply said, "Hurry, Mummy." That evening, Kate called home as usual, but the conversation was different. The children's voices carried a lightness that had been missing for weeks. They had seen with their own eyes that their mother was healing, that she was working hard to come back to them. Over the following weeks, Kate's progress accelerated. The family visit had given her renewed motivation and energy for the healing process. She worked with renewed focus in her therapy sessions, practiced the mindfulness techniques she was learning, and threw herself into the physical rehabilitation that would prepare her for the demands of royal life. Dr. Matthews was pleased with Kate's progress, but cautioned against rushing the process. "Healing isn't just about feeling better in the moment," she explained during one of their sessions. "It's about building sustainable practices and perspectives that will serve you well when you return to the pressures of your public life." Kate understood this wisdom and committed herself fully to the remaining weeks of treatment. She developed a daily routine that included meditation, journaling, exercise, and therapy sessions. She learned techniques for managing stress and maintaining perspective during difficult times. The facility's gardens became a source of strength for Kate. She spent hours walking the paths, often on the phone with William or the children, sharing descriptions of the flowers and wildlife she encountered. These conversations helped maintain their connection, while also giving Kate space to process her thoughts and emotions. One afternoon, while sitting by a small pond watching ducks swim peacefully, Kate realized that she felt fundamentally different from the woman who had arrived at the facility months earlier. She was still the same person, still a mother, still a wife, still a royal, but she had gained tools and perspectives that would help her navigate these roles with greater health and happiness. She wrote in her journal that evening, "I came here feeling broken and overwhelmed. I'm leaving feeling whole and capable. The difference isn't that my life has become easier. It's that I've become stronger and wiser about how to handle its challenges." The final week of treatment focused on transition planning. Kate worked with her medical team to develop strategies for maintaining her health while resuming royal duties. They discussed the importance of boundaries, the need for regular self-care, and the value of continuing therapeutic support even after leaving the facility. Dr. Matthews met with William via video call to discuss how the family could support Kate's continued healing. They talked about creating space for the practices Kate had learned, about maintaining open communication regarding stress and challenges, and about the importance of celebrating progress rather than expecting perfection. As Kate packed her belongings for the journey home, she felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She was eager to return to her family and resume her life, but she also understood that this transition would require patience and adjustment from everyone involved. The small room that had been her sanctuary for months looked sparse once her personal belongings were packed. But Kate didn't feel sad about leaving. She felt grateful for the healing that had taken place here and ready for the next chapter of her life, a chapter that would be written with greater wisdom, stronger health, and deeper appreciation for the love that surrounded her. The morning of Kate's return dawned bright and clear, as if the universe itself was celebrating her homecoming. William woke the children early, explaining that this was a special day that deserved a special breakfast. Together, they prepared Kate's favorite meal, fresh fruit, warm pastries, and the tea blend she had missed during her time away. George took charge of arranging the flowers they had picked from the garden, the same bulbs that Kate had planted with them before leaving. The tiny shoots Charlotte had described during their visit had grown into beautiful blooms, purple crocuses, yellow daffodils, and bright red tulips that seemed to dance in the morning breeze. Charlotte had spent the previous evening making a welcome home banner, decorated with hearts and rainbows and the words, "We love you, Mummy," written in her careful handwriting. Louis had contributed his own artistic touches, which looked more like joyful scribbles but carried just as much love. William checked his watch constantly throughout the morning, knowing that Kate's car would arrive at 10 o'clock. The past 3 months had been the longest of his life, filled with the challenges of single parenting and the constant worry about his wife's health. But they had also been a time of growth for the family, as each member had discovered inner strength they didn't know they possessed. At Kensington Palace, the household staff buzzed with quiet excitement. Mrs. Henderson had personally overseen the preparation of Kate's favorite lunch, while the gardener had ensured that every flower in the garden was perfectly tended. Even the security team seemed more relaxed, knowing that their beloved Duchess would soon be home where she belonged. The car carrying Kate turned into the palace driveway exactly on time. Kate sat in the back seat, her hands folded in her lap, watching the familiar sights of home come into view. Everything looked exactly the same, yet she felt like she was seeing it all with new eyes, clearer, more appreciative, more present. As the car stopped, Kate could see her family waiting by the front door. William stood tall and handsome in a casual shirt and jacket, his face showing the same mixture of love and relief that she felt in her own heart. The children bounced with barely contained excitement, Charlotte clutching her banner and Louis holding the small bouquet of flowers they had prepared. The moment Kate stepped out of the car, any nervousness she had felt about this reunion disappeared. Louis broke free from William's gentle restraint and ran straight to her, just as he had done during their visit to the treatment facility. Kate caught him up in her arms, spinning him around while he giggled with pure joy. Charlotte approached next, suddenly shy but glowing with happiness. She held up her banner proudly, watching Kate's face light up as she read the loving words. "It's beautiful, darling," Kate said, kneeling down to Charlotte's level. "The most beautiful welcome home sign anyone could ask for." George walked over with the measured steps of someone trying to be mature, but Kate could see the emotion in his eyes. When she stood up and opened her arms to him, he stepped into her embrace without hesitation. "I missed you so much, Mummy," he whispered, and Kate felt her heart swell with love for this thoughtful, caring boy who had tried so hard to be strong for his family. Finally, Kate turned to William. They had shared so many words during their daily phone calls, but now they found themselves speechless. William reached out and touched her face gently, as if to confirm that she was really there, really home. When Kate leaned into his touch, they both felt the completion of a circle that had been broken for too long. "Welcome home," William said simply, and Kate felt the truth of those words settle into her bones. This was home. Not just the beautiful palace with its grand rooms and careful protocol, but this family, these people who loved her unconditionally. The staff had gathered in the entrance hall to welcome Kate home, but their greeting was warm and personal rather than formal. Mrs. Henderson stepped forward first, her usually stern face soft with emotion. "Your Grace," she said, then caught herself and smiled. "Kate, we've missed having you here." Kate thanked each staff member individually, remembering the kindnesses they had shown during her departure, and appreciating the extra care they had given her family during her absence. These people were more than employees. They were part of the extended family that made royal life possible. Lunch was served in the small family dining room, the same space where Kate had shared her last meal with the children before leaving for treatment. But the atmosphere today was completely different, filled with laughter, animated conversation, and the comfortable chaos of a family reunited. The children wanted to show Kate everything she had missed during her absence. George had won an award at school that he wanted her to see. Charlotte had learned to ride her bicycle without training wheels and was eager to demonstrate. Louis had mastered several new words and used them all in rapid succession, making everyone laugh. After lunch, the family walked through the gardens together, with Kate admiring every flower and commenting on how much everything had grown. The bulbs they had planted together had indeed bloomed beautifully, creating the rainbow garden that Charlotte had described during their phone calls. They kept growing because they knew you were coming back, Charlotte said seriously, holding Kate's hand as they walked along the garden path. Kate smiled at her daughter's faith, realizing that in many ways, Charlotte was right. Love and hope had kept many things growing during their time apart. That afternoon, Kate unpacked her belongings in the bedroom she shared with William. The room felt both familiar and somehow new, as if her time away had given her fresh perspective on this space they had shared for so many years. William watched her move around the room, still hardly believing that she was really home. As evening approached, Kate found herself back in the nursery where she had spent that last morning before leaving for treatment. The toys were arranged differently now, showing evidence of the children's play during her absence. But the essential feeling of the room remained the same, a space filled with love and childhood wonder. William joined her there as they prepared for the evening routine that Kate had missed so much. Tonight she would read bedtime stories again, tuck each child into bed and sing the lullabies that had become family traditions. Louis fell asleep easily in Kate's arms after his story, his small body relaxed and content in a way that spoke of deep security. Charlotte wanted to hear 2 stories, trying to extend this precious time with her mother, and Kate was happy to oblige. George, ever thoughtful, asked if Kate felt completely better now, and she was able to answer honestly that yes, she felt stronger and healthier than she had in a long time. After the children were asleep, Kate and William sat together in their living room, finally alone for the first time since her return. They talked quietly about the children's growth during her absence, about William's experiences as a single parent, and about Kate's healing journey. "I need you to know," Kate said, taking William's hands in hers, "that leaving was the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was also the best thing I could have done for our family. I learned things about myself, about managing stress and finding balance. That will make me a better wife and mother." William listened as Kate shared some of what she had learned during treatment, techniques for managing the unique pressures of royal life, the importance of self-care, and strategies for maintaining perspective during difficult times. He realized that while her time away had been painful for all of them, it had also been transformative. As they prepared for bed that night, Kate felt a deep sense of gratitude wash over her. Gratitude for the treatment that had helped her heal, for the family that had supported her journey, for the love that had sustained them all through the difficult months of separation. The palace felt complete again with Kate's presence. The household staff moved with renewed energy. The children's laughter rang a little brighter, and William walked with a lightness that had been missing for months. That night, as Kate lay in her own bed beside her husband for the first time in 3 months, she reflected on the journey that had brought her back to this moment. The silent farewell that had begun with tears and uncertainty had ended with healing, growth, and a deeper appreciation for the love that surrounded her. The future stretched ahead with new possibilities, royal duties approached with better boundaries, family time treasured more deeply, and a personal strength that would serve her well in the years to come. Kate closed her eyes that night knowing that sometimes the most difficult journeys lead to the most precious destinations, and that love, patient, enduring, and forgiving, can heal even the deepest wounds.